return now to our main news tonight. We're joined from our Dáil studio by the former Deputy Leader of Fianna Fáil, Éamon Cuív. Deputy Cuív, thanks indeed for joining us on the programme. Micheál Martin told us just a few moments ago that you offered your resignation to him last night, but it was only this afternoon that you agreed and that resignation was accepted.
Well, what happened was he rang me and I rang him then in return, and we discussed the issue last night, and I said that I obviously understood that if we couldn't reconcile our differences, that it would be untenable for me to be Deputy Leader. We then met this morning and we agreed to not do anything for the moment, and I got a phone call at 4 o'clock asking me to resign and telling me that I was no longer a member of the front bench. The issue of the front bench had not at any point been discussed, but I accept that. That's his prerogative to have a Deputy Leader that agrees with his views, and obviously also to have a front bench that accept the decision in this issue of the party. And
your position in relation to this EU treaty, I think you were telling TG Cahir last night that you weren't prepared to say what way you'd be voting, but your position now, you've clarified it, is that you're against the treaty, you're opposed to this.
No, I think there's a much more fundamental issue. I think before we get to the treaty, that the Irish government and the Taoiseach should go back to Brussels and get a number of issues clarified. And these issues include the write-down of the bank debt, because remember, a large proportion of this was incurred by Ireland because of reckless lending by continental banks who now want their money back. And I think that issue should be top of the list. There's also the issue of regulation of the financial system in Europe. This crisis in Ireland is not basically a fiscal crisis, it's a financial crisis. And without central regulation in Europe of the banks, what has happened here can happen again. And there were three other issues.
Okay, I mean, I don't necessarily want to go into the substantive issues here, but the point here is that you accept that position that you've articulated just now is not compatible with Fianna Fáil's approach to this to this referendum campaign.
Oh, absolutely. I went to Micheál Martin a number of weeks ago, and I have a sheet of paper in front of me here I had at that time, and I outlined my views. Subsequently, there was a parliamentary party, and I outlined my views there. Then, as you know, yesterday a decision was taken to have the referendum, and I understand that Micheál Martin went into the Dáil and he said we were without any preconditions backing this. And I would have to say that I was very concerned about that, and I articulated my concern that I couldn't in conscience knock the doors of Galway West, Cork, Kerry, Donegal, Dublin and everywhere else in the country looking for support for this without the other issues being dealt with first.
So the question then arises, if your position isn't compatible with remaining as Deputy Leader, can you remain a member of the Parliamentary Party, indeed a member of Fianna Fáil, when Fianna Fáil will, as Micheál Martin has promised, be actively seeking a yes vote in this referendum?
Yes, I can. Of course I can, because there are people all over the country in Fianna Fáil. We have a huge membership, and they don't all agree on issues all of the time, and therefore there's nothing incompatible with having a mind of your own on an issue and being a member of Fianna Fáil. And, you know, no way could you ever presume that, you know, all of the people in Fianna Fáil agree with all the policies at any one time.
But one would expect all members of the Fianna Fáil Parliamentary Party to put their shoulder to the wheel on this referendum campaign.
Well, we haven't got that far, and I hope that before we get to the referendum campaign, that the issues that I'm concerned about will be addressed. And
if they're not, what is your position?
Well, you know, you come to bridges, well, you cross bridges when you come to them, and we're a long way from that bridge yet. The things moved very, very quickly this afternoon. Micheál Martin asked for my resignation. Obviously, I was more than willing to give it to him if he felt I wasn't the right person to be the Deputy Leader.
You're suggesting tonight that the possibility remains that you would campaign against this referendum. You'd campaign against the position being taken by your own party, and yet you seem to suggest you can continue to remain a member of that parliamentary party.
I have said nothing about campaigning. What I said is I couldn't find it in my heart, in the circumstances we find ourselves in, to knock the doors in favour of a fiscal treaty and to leave the huge issues facing this country in relation to debt, bank regulation right across the whole of Europe, the issue of the doubt that has been created in relation to our corporation tax, which will cost us many thousands of jobs.
And how widely... I was going to ask you, how widely do you think those views are shared within Fianna Fáil?
I would say that probably, I don't know, that there's a large number of members within our party who would see the merit in the argument and would think it's an issue that we should trash out. I think there's an awful lot of people in the country who would say, before we go any further, we need this debt issue settled once and for all, and we need to settle in a fair and equitable way, which has not happened to date.
OK, well, there we'll leave it. Éamon Cuív, thanks indeed for talking to us.